The day his ex-wife locked the door and told him not to come back, Daniel Harper stood on the sidewalk with a trash bag full of clothes in one hand and his 7-year-old daughter's tiny fingers trembling in the other. The autumn wind bit through his thin jacket, but it wasn't the cold that hollowed out his chest. It was the sound of the deadbolt turning. A final click, a final judgment, a final reminder that sometimes the people who promise forever are the first to decide you're not enough. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one moment can change a life, take a second right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Daniel had never imagined his life would narrow down to a single trash bag in a bus stop bench. He had worked 12-hour shifts at a hardware warehouse for years. He had missed birthdays, skipped nights out, and said no to small luxuries so his daughter Lily could say yes to dance classes and school trips. But when the warehouse downsized and Daniel was laid off, the steady foundation of their marriage cracked. His wife Marissa had always loved security more than struggle. Within months, her patience dissolved into resentment. Arguments became routine. Words sharpened. Respect vanished. When Daniel couldn't find a new job fast enough, Marissa made her choice. She filed for divorce, kept the house her parents had helped him buy, and told him he could see Lily on weekends if he found a stable place first. That afternoon, she packed his things into garbage bags and placed them on the porch like unwanted donations. The humiliation stung, but what hurt most was Lily's confused eyes as she clung to him. Daniel didn't cry until that night after Lily fell asleep on a worn couch in his late grandmother's abandoned house across town. The house had been empty for years. After his grandmother passed away, Daniel's father intended to sell it, but life got busy and paperwork piled up. The old place sat quietly on Maple Street, surrounded by overgrown hedges and fading paint. It smelled like dust and lavender. The electricity flickered and the plumbing groaned like an old man stretching his bones, but it had a roof and it was theirs. Daniel spent the next weeks cleaning. He scrubbed mold from the bathroom tiles and patched holes in the drywall. He sold his wedding ring to pay overdue utility bills. At night, after Lily fell asleep on a mattress on the floor, he filled out job applications until his eyes blurred. Every rejection email felt like another door slamming shut. One evening, as he sorted through boxes in the attic, searching for anything valuable to pawn, Daniel found a small tin tucked inside a stack of yellowed recipe books. Inside the tin were old photographs, a faded locket, and a single black bank card wrapped carefully in tissue paper. The card had his grandmother's name embossed in silver letters, Eleanor Harper. There was no expiration date printed on it, no visible bank logo he recognized, just a number and a small engraved crest in the corner. Daniel frowned. He remembered his grandmother as a gentle woman who baked apple pies and hummed old jazz songs. She had lived modestly. There had been no signs of wealth, no expensive jewelry or lavish vacations, just a simple life in a small home. Tucked beneath the card was a handwritten note in his grandmother's elegant script. It said, "Only one sentence for when you have no other door left to knock on." Daniel sat back on the dusty attic floor, the card heavy in his palm. He almost laughed at the irony. He truly had no other door left. The next morning, after dropping Lily at school, he walked into the nearest branch of a large national bank. He felt embarrassed even stepping inside. His shoes were worn, his jacket frayed at the sleeves. He approached the counter and explained that he had found an old card belonging to his grandmother and wanted to check if there were any remaining funds. The teller took the card with a polite smile that quickly faded as she typed the number into her system. Her posture stiffened. She blinked once, then again. Daniel noticed the color drain from her face. She excused herself abruptly and disappeared into a back office, carrying the card like it was made of glass. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Two men in suits stepped out, whispering urgently. One of them glanced at Daniel with unmistakable shock. The entire atmosphere in the bank shifted. Conversations hushed. Employees moved faster. Someone locked the front doors. Daniel's heart pounded. He wondered if the card was stolen or linked to some debt he didn't know about. Panic crawled up his spine. He imagined police sirens, misunderstandings, humiliation in front of strangers. Instead, one of the suited men approached him with careful politeness and asked him to come into a private office. Inside, the branch manager's hands trembled slightly as he placed the card on the desk between them. He explained that this was not an ordinary bank card. It was connected to a legacy account that had not been accessed in decades. The account required executive authorization for any transaction. The balance, he added quietly, was substantial. Daniel felt the word hang in the air like a fragile ornament. Substantial. He asked what that meant. The manager swallowed and turned the monitor slightly so Daniel could see. The number on the screen didn't register at first. It had too many zeros. His mind tried to rearrange it into something reasonable, something believable, but it didn't change. His grandmother, the woman who clipped coupons and mended socks, had been sitting on a fortune. Before Daniel could process it fully, the manager's phone rang. He answered quickly, his tone suddenly deferential. After a brief conversation, he looked at Daniel with new intensity. The CEO of the bank was flying in. He wanted to meet personally. Within hours, a black car pulled up outside the branch. A sharply dressed woman in her early 50s stepped out, her presence commanding and calm. She introduced herself as Victoria Langford, CEO of the institution. Her handshake was firm, her eyes observant. She explained that Daniel's grandmother had been one of the bank's earliest private investors decades ago. During a time when the institution was small and struggling, Eleanor Harper had entrusted them with a significant investment under one condition: that it remained untouched until a direct descendant came forward willingly without prior knowledge of its size. Daniel's breath caught. His grandmother had known. Victoria continued, explaining that Eleanor had once been a brilliant financial strategist who stepped away from corporate life after her husband's death. She chose simplicity over status, quietly allowing her investments to grow. The account had multiplied over the years into an extraordinary sum. Daniel sat in stunned silence. The weight of the past months crashed into him all at once. The nights on the cold mattress, the humiliation, the fear of not being able to provide for Lily, and now this. But what struck him most wasn't relief. It was understanding. His grandmother had seen something in him. She had known that pride might stop him from asking for help, so she created a safety net he would only find when he truly needed it. Victoria assured him that the funds were legally his. The bank had been waiting for this day for years. When Daniel left the building that afternoon, the world looked different. The same streets, the same traffic, but the air felt lighter. He sat in his old car and allowed himself to cry. Not out of despair this time, but out of overwhelming gratitude. Yet, the real transformation didn't happen in the bank. It happened that evening when Lily ran into his arms after school, excitedly telling him about her spelling test. Daniel held her tightly and realized something important. The money wasn't a rescue from failure. It was a tool for purpose. In the weeks that followed, Daniel paid off debts quietly. He repaired the old house instead of buying a mansion. He invested wisely, honoring his grandmother's legacy. Most importantly, he created a foundation in her name dedicated to helping single parents who had been displaced or abandoned. He knew firsthand what it felt like to sit on a bus stop bench with nowhere to go. Word of his transformation eventually reached Marissa. She tried to re-enter his life, suddenly soft and apologetic. But Daniel had changed in ways money could not measure. The rejection that once shattered him had strengthened him. He declined her attempts gently but firmly, choosing peace over pride. Years later, the small foundation grew into a national program offering housing grants and job placement support. Daniel often visited the families they helped, listening to their stories. Every time he handed over keys to a safe home, he thought of that single sentence written on fragile paper. For when you have no other door left to knock on. One evening, Daniel stood in front of a newly renovated apartment complex funded entirely by the Eleanor Harper Foundation. Lily, now a confident teenager, stood beside him as families moved inside, their faces glowing with relief. Daniel realized that the true inheritance wasn't the money. It was foresight, compassion, quiet strength. His grandmother hadn't saved him from hardship. She had allowed him to endure it long enough to understand others who were suffering. Before we close this story, I want to ask you something personal. If this journey touched your heart even a little, if you believe that kindness can echo across generations, please comment the word hope below. Let's fill the comment section with hope for every single parent fighting silent battles. Daniel often revisited that first day, the locked door, the trash bag, the cold wind. He no longer saw it as the worst day of his life. He saw it as the doorway to everything that followed. Losing comfort had forced him to rediscover courage. Being rejected had pushed him toward purpose, and an old card tucked inside a dusty attic had reminded him that love can be planned in advance. As the sun set over Maple Street, Daniel watched Lily laugh with new friends outside their restored home. The paint was fresh now. The hedges trimmed, the windows glowing warmly. It wasn't grand or extravagant, but it was filled with dignity. Sometimes the bank panics. Sometimes the CEO calls. Sometimes the numbers on a screen change your circumstances overnight. But the real miracle is not the money. It's the moment a broken father realizes he was never truly abandoned. He was being prepared. And if this story reminded you that even in your darkest hour, there may be something waiting in the attic of your life, a hidden blessing you cannot yet see, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories of hope reach people who might be sitting on their own bus stop bench right now, believing there is no way forward. Because sometimes when one door closes with a cruel final click, another waits quietly, wrapped in tissue paper, holding a promise made long ago.